commission meeting. Jeannie, do you want to do roll call?
Okay, Commissioner White,
Here.
Commissioner Lesniak,
Here.
Commissioner Harrington,
Here.
Commissioner Kroc,
Here.
Chairperson Wade.
Here.
Just to note, everybody's present.
Thank you very much. Welcome, everyone. If you could, turn your cell phones or Apple Watches or any noise-making devices to silent, please, so we can avoid interruption. Jeannie, orders of the day, anything new?
Everything's as on the agenda.
Everything's as on the agenda. Very good. Okay. Next.
Right then.
Slow on the uptake there.
We're going to move into the public comment section, which is a time for which people can come up and say something about anything really that's not on the agenda. There's a 3-minute limit. If you have anything you would like to say, you're welcome to come up, state your name and address. Anyone? I'll take that as a no. So we'll move right on to approval of last month's meeting. I'm assuming everyone's had a chance to look at it. Any comments, modifications?
I move to approve.
Second motion.
Okay, all those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. All those not in favor? The ayes have it, 5-0. Meeting minutes approved. All righty. Moving on to the next public hearing section. There's actually only one item on the public hearing section, and that is for a project that my brother is the general contractor on. So I will step out of the room, I guess, while you guys discuss and vote that one out. All right?
Bye, Mr. Wade.
Bye, Mr. Wade.
Who's in charge if he's not here?
I'm not you two are the senior.
Okay, I'm in charge.
Go ahead.
Good.
Okay,
Jeannie's going to do this.
but I want the gavel.
Gotta have the count.
All right. Is there someone who would like to come speak about the project on 16111 Viewfield Road? Or Jeannie,
I'll
first
just
you tell.
introduce it. So what you have before you is actually an amendment to a previously approved site development permit at 16111 Viewfield Road. The previously approved site development permit was for an addition to an existing 2-story home. They, through the process of construction, they realized that some of the existing siding and whatnot, there needed to be some repair. And I think, given that, they're taking the opportunity to modify the exterior cladding of the whole home. So what you have before you shows what the previously approved exterior was going to be, which was a combination of board and batten at the ground floor and horizontal siding at the upper floors. They're now going to a horizontal at the ground level with the cedar shingle all treated with the same color at the uppers. The color renderings is where you can see where the rear elevation is. So as far as conformance with design guidelines and whatnot, it's clearly typical of a lot of the way the homes are being finished on the exterior, and I think would fit fine within the context of the larger neighborhood, which has a mix of exterior design finishes. So with that, I'm available for any questions, and the homeowner is in the audience.
Would the homeowner project manager wish to come speak about it?
I'm the homeowner. My name's
You
Justin.
can come up to the microphone.
Nothing there I need to say. Hi, I'm Justin Laverne. I live at Viewfield, the project we're talking about. As Jeannie said, it's pretty straightforward. We're just moving the vertical siding from the upper, the existing, down to the lower, and where it was batten board. And what we're proposing to do is just do a shaker-style shingle at the upper. It's pretty typical. We see it all around the neighborhood. there's a home on Andrews that is a white house right at the corner there that we kind of got the idea, so that's it.
Thank you.
Yeah, thanks.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Discussion amongst the commission.
Yes, it's fine.
I think it looks great.
Yeah,
I think it's beautiful.
I would move to approve as submitted.
I second it.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Good luck.
Approved. 4, 1 abstention.
Are you ready to surrender the gavel?
Yeah, you can let them back there. Ah, I forgot to use it, too.
Thank you, Jennifer, for handling that in my absence. Okay, that's the end of the public hearings section of this meeting. Moving on to commission discussion. There are 2 items on the agenda. Jeannie, do you want to give a brief rundown on the first item under this? And also, if you could clarify this commission's role in discussing and voting on this.
Yeah, so what's before you are some proposed changes to the city's zoning code regulations. And given that the Site and Architectural Commission deals with the review of new construction, you know, its setbacks and whatnot, given what's proposed in some of these changes, staff is taking the position that I think council would like to hear what you all think, given, you know, the fact that you deal with new construction on properties. It's not specifically stated in our municipal code that you sit in as a recommending body, but I think it's a good practice, and I think the council has indicated that they're looking to you all for your thoughts on some of these. So with that, as I've set forth in the staff report, this all really started with back in May of 2018. There was an item that went before council. It was a request for a variance for an accessory dwelling unit, and they were requesting to reduce the setbacks from 6 down to 5 for the side and rear. Council at that time felt that those in the R18 zoning district, and those setbacks were more appropriate district-wide also. So they had directed staff to go back, put together some proposal and bring it back to them. So in the course of that, as well as during my tenure here the last 2.5 years, there is also other opportunities to clarify some of the regulations in the code and bring them consistent with the practice of the city over a number of years, and just make it a lot clearer so people aren't questioning, you know, why something is the way it is. So what you're seeing first really is the proposed reduction or modification to the setback, not only for accessory structures, which includes accessory dwelling units in the R18 zoning district, but also proposal to reduce the required side setback for the primary dwellings in the R18. Staff's thought is that accessory dwelling units have the living area on the ground floor, and to have those at 5 feet, it's a little difficult to rationalize why that's okay at 5 feet, but the ground floor of the living area in a primary dwelling has to be at 6. I'd be a little pressed to say what the difference is, which is why staff is proposing that the setbacks basically for ground floor living area is consistent at 5 feet. That being said, the other proposed changes, a lot of it has to do with clarifying language related to the slope density formula, when that's used. I think the matrix helps a lot. The other areas that we're proposing to clarify, I mean, really all the rest of the stuff are proposed clarifications. We use the term covered parking, but reality, it's enclosed parking that's been required. So again, making the language in the code consistent with the practice. What else are we doing here? The
Fencing.
issue of fencing, which can be sensitive in this town or city. Again, that's an area where I'm proposing a modification to the language consistent with the practice over years. And it's related to the side corner setback of the fencing. Right now, the language in the code refers to, you can have a 3-foot tall fence within the front setback of your lot, but on the side and rear, you can have a 6-foot. Well, they don't differentiate between side and side corner. The practice has been that the side corner setback has been treated the same as the front, and when any time you want a fence higher than 3 feet in your side corner setback, which in R18 is 15.5 feet, and the others it's 22 or 24, that you come before Site and Architectural Commission. And you've seen a number of those. So what we're proposing to do, which is typical of other cities, is to allow 6 feet within a reasonable setback of that side corner. 15.5 feet, that really, takes up a lot of yard space, which is why you see a lot of people coming, because they really want to take advantage of enclosing that side yard space behind a taller fence. So what staff is proposing is in the R18 zoning district, that it be 10 feet as opposed to what currently would be 15.5 feet. And then in the R120 and the R144, that it be 15 feet as opposed to the 22.5 or 25 foot. So it's not bringing it all back, within 5 or 6. It's still a decent buffer between that side corner property line and the ability to put up a 6-foot tall fence. So still, if they wanted to come closer than 10 feet in the R18 or 15 in the R120 or R144, they'd need to come back to you. But now it's clear relative to where you can have a 6-foot tall fence along the side corner setback. Right now, it's not. The other areas that were, again, is just also pulling some regulations that are in other parts of the zoning ordinance into the district regulations, is including the lot frontage requirements and making it specific to a district as opposed to a lot size. And also, again, bringing forward out of the general provision sections straight into the development standards sections for each respective zoning district, the side corner setback. So I attached the strikeout and underline, which might help see where a lot of that is, but I think really aside from the proposed modification to the side and rear setback for accessory dwelling units and the side setback for the primary in the R18 district, and then the clarification of the side corner setback for 6-foot fences, the remainders really are bringing the regulations that are existing and putting them in where they really should be, so it's easier for the public to see what's required of them. And then again, clarifications relative to that slope density, which still might be confusing to people, but at least it's making it a lot easier to understand when that comes into play. So with that, I'm available for any questions. Clear as mud, right?
Public comment on
I'm
this?
on the fence on whether I should recuse myself on this because I am a designer and potential clients could benefit from any changes or whatever.
That's perfectly appropriate if you feel.
So can I just sit here and just not say anything? Or should I go in the cone of
I
silence?
think if you're going to recuse yourself, that
the
you
room?
should
Okay.
step out.
Okay, thanks, Jeannie. At this point, I think we'll have an opportunity for the public to come up and speak, because we don't have any questions for Jeannie at this point. I'm taking it? Okay. So anybody who would like to come up and speak, well, actually, we have cards here. So, and I think there's only one person that wants to speak on this. You have 3 minutes, so if you could please try to keep it to 3 minutes. Mr. Daniel Labouvet.
Yeah, I think I'm the only one. So I was at the meeting that really, and where this came up in terms of the variance, moving the setback from 5 to 6 feet, and then I went back and also listened to the tape again. If you go back and listen to that tape, the city council discussion was really centered much more around the variance for the particular resident, and not so much on what to do going forward. It was really the city manager that sort of insisted on taking this as a study item for future. I'm personally very against changing any of the zoning rules. 6 is already a pretty small setback, especially considering an accessory dwelling unit in an R18. It just really means that the neighbor takes the brunt of putting any screening up, and if the person that is building the accessory dwelling unit does want to put some screening up, 6 feet is a very small distance to add any kind of shrubbery and then maintain it and so forth. Secondly, with respect to kind of the analysis part, I would really like to see a little more, a comparison to more comparable cities. So Campbell and San Jose are not really comparable cities to Monte Sereno. I would like to see comparisons much more in line with like Mountain View, Palo Alto, Los Altos Hills, Hillsborough. Let's put a little more data science behind how we're changing our zoning laws and not just be driven by one variant and one-off case. So that's it. Thanks.
Thank you. At this point, we'll discuss it some more here. Jeannie, can I ask clarification on the current and proposed side yard setbacks for accessory versus primary dwelling units? Are they both 6 feet right now? That's the way it is, right?
Currently in the R18 zoning district, the side and rear setbacks for accessory structures, which includes accessory dwelling units, is 6 feet. The side setbacks interior side setbacks for primary dwellings in the R18 is 6 feet.
Okay, so they're both at 6 feet right now. And this change is proposing that we reduce both of those to 5 feet, not only the accessory, but also the primary dwelling. Gotcha.
And you don't have to take it as a package deal, but
Right.
Did this just come up because one person asked for a variance? Have there been a lot of variances requested for the 6 or 5 feet?
it came up in the context of that request on Xena, because I'm answering a question right now. So I think when you're done, the commission can recognize you. So, yeah, if you do listen to the discussion, I think the council did agree with the suggestion of the city manager that if they were going to think that that setback was appropriate, that they direct staff to go back and bring a proposal to them to modify it.
So that's kind of the primary driver behind that change then, is this one particular,
Yeah,
is that what I'm hearing?
I'm,
The direction came as a result of their action on that requested variance, and
well, the thing that concerns me about that is that if we give a variance for something, is it gonna all of a sudden become, everybody can do it? If something is very site-specific, and I realize the city council is a whole different thing, but if we give a variance for one thing because the lot shape or the lot size, or it's a flag lot, or, I know we don't have those, but I would not like to think that if we do a variance, that it's gonna be like, well, the last time they did a variance, they just made it citywide. I don't like that idea.
I would agree with you on that.
I think a variance is just that, a variance. It
Well,
doesn't necessarily mean that you have to do it for everything.
I tend to think that the rural character of this city should have slightly larger setbacks than Campbell
Yeah.
or San Jose, for example. It's not a lot, it's just 1 foot, but, you know, I don't see why we should step in line with those.
Do we do each bullet point at a time, or because we're just advising, so how do we?
You can structure your recommendation in any form or fashion. You don't have to accept everything as a package deal. You can separate something out of it. You can support certain things. You can recommend non-support of other proposals. So it's really wide open as to how you structure your support of the proposed
I mean, I
changes.
appreciate the cleanup and the clarification
Yeah.
part. I mean, that's all stuff that is good. And then the side yard, the corner side yard setback is kind of a gray area that we kind of deal with by case basis. It would be nice to get that kind of set in stone, this is what our policy is. So I'm all for all of that. I'm just, the whole changing of the side yards, the non-corner side yard setback from 6 to 5 seems kind of random to me. I don't know why.
Should we
And
do
I
it?
think there are three substantive elements of what changes are proposed. The one that we've just talked about, the fence height, and then the setbacks associated with those fences. Everything else seems to be resolving ambiguities in the code that I think are appropriate. Those ambiguities deserve to be resolved by way of amendment. But as it relates to those three substantive elements, I'm actually opposed to all of them. Reduction in the fence heights. I don't so much have an issue with where the fences can commence from the setbacks. I think that is a case-by-case basis, candid. But I also am similarly opposed to any sort of reduction in the setbacks on side yards, regardless of whether it's an accessory or primary structure. So I don't know if they're like minds on the commission, and that we simply make a motion that, with the exception of those three elements, that the rest of what has been drafted is appropriate for a reading by the city council, or whether we warrant some additional discussion on those three topics, because that's just simply my opinion, not necessarily that of yours.
Can I make one clarification
Sure.
relative to the side corner setback for a 6-foot fence? Right now, as the code reads, it would allow a 6-foot fence along the side corner property line. So, you know, to the extent that if you feel that the current practice of having it set a 6-foot high fence along the side corner at that side corner setback at 15.5 feet, at 22.5 in R120 and 25 and is appropriate, then I would encourage you to say, because we do need to differentiate between side and side corner at the minimum.
Right.
So staff was just proposing that setback not be so restrictive, you know, because it is, you do see a lot of those. And so that's why we, you know, shaved 5 feet off the side corner, and similar to the R120 and R144, it's still proposed to be 10 in the R18 as opposed to 15.5, and a little more in the R120 and R144. If you don't agree with those proposed setbacks, you can, again, simply support language that treats that side corner setback for a 6-foot high fence similar to the front, that anything within that side corner setback can only be 3 feet in height unless they come before you. Because right now, it's not distinguished. So at the minimum, we need to distinguish it. that make sense?
You know, it makes total
Does,
sense,
yeah.
yeah.
No, thank you.
I think that corner lots are a little bit at a disadvantage because of the corner lot. And I personally think the proposal is reasonable to not penalize a corner lot by making them have two front setbacks on two corners of their lot. 10-foot one is, for the R18 is reasonable. There's enough for some vegetation, landscaping, or whatever before a 6-foot fence pops up. Seems that every time it comes before us under review, we seem to approve it. So we've kind of, we're already moving in that direction. So I would tend to suppose that we recommend that change. But the side yard, the 6 to 5, I don't see any good reason to.
That's really the only one I'm opposed to.
So, no,
And you have three that you're, which three are you not?
well, the height of the fence is, I'm actually okay with the setback issues, like you described them on corners.
I think that's really all we're talking about. I think there's just two issues, right? It's the how we address setback at side corner, and the other one is the just the non-side corner. Those are the two issues.
Yeah, I mean, right
as far
now,
as setback goes.
yeah, right now, again, there is no distinction between side, the allowable height for a fence on the side, in the side setback and/or side corner. So it can be construed that both side setbacks, you can have a 6-foot fence on that property line.
Okay.
So what staff is proposing is not only to clarify
Oh, I see. Okay.
relative to where that 6-foot fence height can be on your side corner, but we're also proposing to reduce it a little bit instead of, by saying that you can have a 6-foot fence along your side, which means anywhere behind your front. Right now, you could have it on the property line on the side corner, a corner lot. You could say, treat it the same way as we do the front, which has been the practice. So we could propose to codify the practice of saying that 6-foot has to be at that side corner setback, which is 15 and a half feet in an R18. Or, as staff is proposing, give them another 5 feet. So
Now,
it's,
Is that just for the front of the property? As soon as it gets to the back of the property, they can go back to the property line? Or is that
all
all the
along
way
that.
down?
It's all along that side corner setback, so when they hit the rear property line, they can then go in at 6. So anything within that side corner setback from your front setback line all the way back. So you can't get this little jog, no, it's got to be, so.
I think it's reasonable.
Yeah, I don't have an objection to that, with the explanation given.
I don't see, I think the recommendations are very reasonable, and I think that,
About the fences?
yeah, and the setbacks too.
Yeah.
I think that's fine.
No, that explanation helps. I would draw my objection to that then, and would only have an objection in relationship to side setbacks,
Side
reduction from
building
6 to
setbacks.
5, yeah.
So is the only difference among us then the reduction of the side yard setback from 6 to 5? Because I'm against that.
I would concur.
I would agree too. I don't think it deserves much attention, but
I
I
just
agree.
don't see a reason
I don't see a reason to change something for no good reason.
Okay.
Do we do a motion, or do we just say,
You can make it's best if you make a motion that, in this case, you might want to make a motion to recommend that the council introduce and consider the proposed amendments to the zoning code as proposed by staff, with the exception of those side setback modifications related to both the accessory structures as well as the primary structures in the R18. That's how I would structure a motion.
I agree with that. I agree with that definition of
What
the
she
motion.
said.
I know, can we do that? Can we do what she said? Because
I'll
that's
make
what
the
we
motion.
mean.
I'll make the motion that the city council introduce and hold the first reading of an ordinance of the city of Monte Sereno amending all of the chapters provided to us with the exception of those related to the site setback in the R18 zoning district.
There was no change proposed in the other zones, right? Okay. I second.
Well,
All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
All those not in favor? Ayes have it. 4-0.
Great. Thank you. Thank you, Jeannie.
Must have been listening.
All righty, moving on to the second item under commission discussion for the property at 18081 Saratoga Los Gatos Road. Jeannie, do you want to, again, give us a brief description of the project and also clarify our role in discussing this topic?
Yes. As I get organized, sorry. So again, what's before you this evening is the architecture of a proposed homes of a application we currently have on file for a 3-lot subdivision at the lot at 18081 Saratoga Los Gatos Road. As I tried to just kind of briefly discuss in the memo to you, it's been a while since this community has seen a subdivision. And so, you know, in going through it and working through the regulations, there are specific regulations related to hillside subdivisions and or scenic corridor subdivisions. And specific to those, it gives the site and architectural control to the city council with no reference to having it come before you as a recommending body, different from when you're looking at a site permit that's associated with another action that the council acts on. It does specifically state that. However, you know, there's clearly an interest that from the council, I think that, you know, similar to the last item, that they are looking to you all, you know, given your experience, what your thoughts would be on, you know, whether it be code amendments or the architecture or in design of homes that they are then going to see through other applications. So again, what's before you is the proposed design of 3 homes. You do have the plans, which do show the land division and some grading and whatnot, that you can ask questions about that. It's really, you know, you're not obligated to comment on that because you're not sitting in a position of decision-making on how the land is divided. I did give reference in the memo that the subdivision does meet the required, you know, development regulations in the subdivision ordinance. So what you're looking at is how those homes have been cited and the design of them. There are a few regulations that are specific to properties along the scenic corridor and hillside subdivisions that are a little different than what you would normally see, and it's related to height. So there's a provision in the subdivision regulations that the height is limited to 15 feet above the highest natural point before grading of a lot, the new lots proposed. So you're seeing one of the homes on a lot, the design modified to better accommodate that or meet that requirement, and that's the home on Lot 3, I believe it was. So I tried to take you through kind of each lot, and, you know, the applicant's been working diligently and really, I think, trying to, you know, make some design changes. I think he's also at a point right now to look for guidance from you all. You know, I've given him some guidance, and I think he's also still looking for you all, given your expertise in what direction the design of these homes could go. I mean, I think it's a unique opportunity. These are 11,000 plus square foot lots, and there are some constraints as to how they can be sited on the lot, given the cul-de-sac and the pie-shaped nature of them. So it gives it another challenge. So I think, you know, what are some opportunities or directions that you all see to bring these home designs up to the standard that you would otherwise see with full-scale remodels or new construction homes in this city. So with that, I'm more than happy to answer any questions relative to just the general process of a subdivision. I don't necessarily want you guys to get you know, too deep into what it all is, because really I think what your role really can be here is to help direct the design and finished architecture of these homes. And with that, I'm available for questions. The applicant is in the audience.
I had a couple questions just on logistics of how, like when you allow it to go to be a cul-de-sac when it's on a straight road, what is the criteria for that? Because in our code it says that irregular shaped lots are, anyway, somewhere in the code it says that regular shaped lots are preferred and 70 feet is the frontage for an R18. So what criteria do we allow a cul-de-sac to go in to have irregular shaped lots?
Well, there is the ability, there are sections in the code which do allow for the city council to approve a cul-de-sac as long as it meets certain criteria. This is a 40-foot wide private street with a full turnaround for fire truck access. Similar to streets on the south side of Saratoga, Sunnyvale Road, I think there's one that's got 3 lots off it and one with 4 lots off it. So there is the ability to, in the case of subdivisions, to utilize different streets or thoroughfares, or, you know, as long as they meet certain designs. And then when you do have that, you are allowed to reduce the frontage down to, again, 50%. But at that, even though you're allowed that reduction down to 50%, there are other requirements that cause the homes to be further pushed back to a greater front setback than 25 feet. Such as they still have to provide for the same front yard area that would otherwise be required on a 70-foot frontage and 25-foot deep front setback, as well as, you know, that building, they require a building setback line really of when that you get to 70 feet.
Yeah.
Yeah, so we worked through all of those, and So that's why
I
you're
just
seeing,
wanted clarification on that. Thank you.
Anybody else? I don't have any other questions.
Okay, so I think we'll open this up to the public here. I have at least 10 people here.
the applicant is in the
Oh,
audience.
I'm sorry. My bad. Yeah. The applicant is here on this one. Thank you. More. Okay.
Hello, Commissioners.
Yeah, I'm sorry. So I wanted to invite the applicant up to.
No problem. My name is
speak on the
Ajit, and
project.
nice to meet you all. I have printed some real pictures of a flat roof house, which we just finished, because the renderings don't really do a justice to anything. In my opinion, like anything, practically anything on that site right now would be an improvement. And when we were designing these 3 homes, we had to be mindful about we didn't want to be unfair to the neighbors on the view field or the adjacent lot. If we would have put like 2 homes, they would be, you discussed the side setback, they would be stuck really close to the neighbors, right, like 5 feet. So it's really a jigsaw. Like designing these 3 houses was really like a jigsaw puzzle. You change one aspect, then everything changes. So the pictures in front of you are of a real house which just got finished last week. The renderings which Jeannie has provided earlier, they don't really do the justice to like how beautiful houses we can create. Those pictures actually are of a real house, like that depth, even though from my, I took it from my iPhone. But I'll be happy to answer any questions like what were the thoughts behind doing this. I'll keep coming back or I'll stand here.
We'll try to keep you up here with just once. I have a question for you. In presenting this photograph, is the purpose to reveal what the flat roof might look at Lot 3?
Exactly, yeah.
So the siding and the finishes would be consistent with what was submitted here?
Yeah,
Okay.
and then we have like more photos. If I could project or whatever, but that's how they look.
So the stone in the siding, in other words, that is revealed in this photograph,
Yeah, that's the
would
chimney
not
element. Yeah, and
would
then,
not be an element of what you would be proposing at this particular project.
And we're really looking at a guidance from you guys. We'll do something like this.
I think that picture could represent the finishes for that home. What's in the package is just kind of a mix of probably the ones, the lots 1 and 2 that have horizontal siding and some stucco. So the flat roofed one, the materials in that picture is something that can fit that Lot 3 home.
Okay.
And, those, again, are just more for lots 1 and 2.
Finish that house ahead of schedule so that I could present you guys some pictures. Real pictures.
Thank you.
Great. Thank you. Anybody else have any questions?
There's some, I believe there's some concern about the height of the lot number 3 home. That does it fit the standards that we had?
Yeah, and that was one reason why it went from a house designed with a roof pitch to a flat. There, could be some other opportunities to step, see how that house could step down the hill. Also in the rear, could it be a split-level home to design, given the slope at the back of the property. So, but yeah, was the primary reason to go with that design because the original didn't meet that limitation on that Lot 3, that there's a 15-foot height limitation above the highest natural point before grading.
So I'll start the, I'm sorry, I'm going to take 1 minute. The guiding philosophy behind this was we wanted to be merged into this neighborhood. Like we're like 9 feet ceilings, like no one does like 9 feet ceilings in a new construction, but we wanted to be part of the community, right? We're already doing like every accommodation which we can. We could have done like 2-story homes. We're doing only single-story homes. We're doing like 9-foot ceilings. So the guiding thought behind this was a Zen anecdote. You know, Zen master went to a village full of Zen master, and then the chief of that community sent him a bowl full of milk. It was full up to the brim, okay? And the Zen master put a lotus flower on top of it and sent it back. The master, the message, the Zens in that community was trying to send that we're already full. And when he placed the lotus on that flower, on that pot full of milk and sent it back, the message he was trying to give was that we'll be like lotus. So my guiding philosophy behind all this design, me and my civil engineer is here, my architect is here, was like we wanted to be merged in this community, and that's why we are seeking your guidance voluntarily. And we'll do whatever you guys tell. We'll modify those plans, and
Okay, thank you. I appreciate your comments.
Stay here. Or?
Any other questions?
I think that's it, yeah.
Thank you.
Now we move into the section where the public has a chance to speak. We have more than 10, I don't know, maybe 15 or so. So I'd like to try to keep everybody to 3 minutes if you could. Otherwise, we will be here all night. And also, please bear in mind what Jeannie said in terms of what our responsibility is in making any to the council. We are not yay or nay on subdivision. We are looking more at the architectural aspects of this project and how it fits within the community and how it fits within the natural landscape and stuff like that. So I'm just going to call off the names here in no particular order. They're just in the order they were handed to me. So the first name on the list is Robert Chaikin? Thank you.
Thank you.
Give your address also,
Oh, yes.
please.
Robert Chaikin. I'm at 16220 Serena Vista Court. Thank you very much, and good evening. I think we'd all agree that, subdivision aside, when you're ever talking about a piece of property like this, when you increase the occupancy from one house on a premier lot to 3, that's a 300% increase. That's a big and severe impact in the area. And that's why it's a little bit surprising to me that your expertise is only being brought in at this stage of the conversation. I mean, it's nice to see that the developer and the city have been working together on the plans, but I think there's some other bigger issues here that in terms of your mandate that need to be addressed. Monte Sereno came out with there's a Monte Sereno general plan, design guidelines, and site development requirement. That's very substantial. And this proposal meets none of those. It meets elevation, architectural, landscaping, flow. And to your question about how do you make a cul-de-sac, turn a one property lot into a cul-de-sac with 3 houses. So just in terms of the plan, the Monte Sereno guidelines, which predecessors of yours spent a lot of time developing, is very comprehensive. This proposal that you have meets none of that criteria. That's number one. Number two, the question is on the procedures. The council and Monte Sereno have very substantial procedures in place to address an issue like this. And as the city staff said, it doesn't come across that often. But I have a question of whether the procedures were followed here. There just seems to be having you involved earlier in the process, I don't know, for some reason did not happen, and I don't know why that occurred. And the third, so I stand in objecting to this proposal based on, number one, it doesn't meet the Monte Sereno guidelines that have been established. Number two, there's certain procedural questions I don't think have been followed. Third, I think there's other aspects of it that may or not be pertinent to this group in terms of, the estate of the property, the owners of the estate, how they were contacted about the sale, how the sale of this property is contingent on these plans going through. So there's some other factors here that again seem irregular. And the other factor is that I think I know you have to deal with remedies. How do you develop this property in a reasonable manner? The truth is the remedy is very easy. It's a highly desirable property, and it could be put into the hands of an owner and meet the requirements of Monte Sereno very easily. So right now, the property's become like a waste area. But the important thing is that the remedy for you is that this can be a property that can be easily sold and developed into a context or a plan that meets the high quality standards of the Monte Sereno plan guidelines. Thank you.
Do we have a timer thing?
I do
I
now.
think that was
I
about 3
turned it up.
minutes, but
Yeah, I'll turn it up.
Okay.
Sorry.
I don't.
They used to have a
I'm not
light
saying
thing
you
here. I don't know
exceeded
where
it.
it is, so.
I just want to make sure we stay on track here.
So.
Okay. The second person is Lori Chaikin. Oh, okay, there it is.
He's the talker in the family. I'll be really quick here. I've lived in this area since 1972 on and off when traffic was not a concern for me. It was a walk in the park. There weren't a lot of accidents. My concern is the traffic. I drive to Saratoga every day. Coming home, what should be a 7-minute drive is often a 30-minute drive to get into my cul-de-sac. We live right across the street. I know there's been some data collected. I did not collect it myself, but that if 3 homes were built there, it would be 49 more trips in and out of that cul-de-sac, which is right near mine. A lot of people use that center dividing line. If I go to Los Gatos, I have to use it to turn into my property. I'm already anxious because cars come down that center lane to turn on Rose Avenue. Now I have more cars turning onto this cul-de-sac. So I'm concerned about the safety. I'm concerned about the volume of the traffic. And knowing that summer is coming, I'm doubly concerned because we're so backed up when 17 gets used. So I think that's all I have to say. Thank you.
Okay, next person on the list is Mr. Labouvet again.
Hi, Dan Labouvet. I live on Arley Drive, just over here. This property overlooks quite loomingly over my property. So in terms of procedure that Rob had mentioned, and despite a little bit of what Jeannie said, I would ask that the council looks to the existing city code for site development permits and refers to 10.08.05, and please just follow that procedure. And I'll just state it here for the record. In the event a site development permit application is related to another application on which only the city council may act, rather than approve or conditionally approve the site development permit, the committee shall send a recommendation for approval or conditional approval to the city council, or it shall deny the site development permit. Now, I agree that you're not going to outright deny something tonight, but I think that's the sort of recommendation that I think you should make, right? It should not be a laundry list of, I think this, I think that. You guys should, this is a one package deal. Council's looking for a recommendation. Please make a solid recommendation based on what you think. Into the design. When I learned of this design, I was alarmed. The story poles went up right away, and the story poles are quite looming over the top of my property. It clearly violated and had visual impact for my property in particular and for the rest of Rose Avenue. I circulated a petition on Nextdoor. It very quickly rose to 115 community members, and all of the surrounding neighbors signed that petition. I think that's very significant, right? 115 folks from the community signed a petition that says, hey, this just doesn't look like the right fit for Monte Sereno. With respect to the character of each of these lots, I know you guys, basically, let's focus on site development permits for each of the 3 lots. That, you know, the designs are just, they're standard tract home designs. Jeannie wrote that in one of her correspondence with the developer. From the initial design that was put in to what we have today, you know, there's a little bit of colorization, a little few more materials on the plan, but nothing substantial has really changed. There's been no, developer hasn't really reached out to neighbors whatsoever, which is generally what happens in Monte Sereno, is that the neighbors need to be involved in the design project so that we get something that everyone can live with. We live in this community. Turns out, developer's not from this community, you know, so if we let this go through, we're the ones that get stuck with it in the end. Thank you.
Well timed.
Pleasant sound, though.
Okay, next persons on the list, Brad and Janet Stimson. I presume Brad will be the one speaking?
Excuse me.
Good evening. My name is Brad Stimson. My wife and I live on Rose Court, and we, in general, oppose the project. We're particularly concerned about the excessive grading on the proposal and how it affects the existing sight lines for the people on the south side of Arlene, and even us. We're on the north side of Rose Court. We'll be able to see it very clearly. Another, I think, point that I think is very inconsistent with the architecture in the neighborhood is the flat roof. Regardless of why they went to a flat roof, I don't think it's consistent with design in this community. There's also the safety aspect that's been mentioned, and the trees, the excessive, slaughtering of the trees, cut down to like 9 trees, I think is a bit too much, and it will affect the look as you go down Highway 9. I think that's about it. Thank you.
Thank you. Colleen Bickman. Please state your address also, please.
Good evening. I live at 16120A Viewfield Road. In 2004, I married Peter Bazansky, and I live in the property that it abuts the west side of the property in question. From the time I have moved here, that backyard of the property has been totally neglected. The young people who lived in the house before they burned it down, did nothing. They had a skateboard ramp that they used regularly. One of the people would come to this back shed, garage, I don't know what it is, but it's a dilapidated wood structure, and would graffiti it. I made a point of being neutral and talking to the young men that did that to make certain that we didn't have any kind of animosity between them and us. I sent a report on your website showing the various problems we've had. Feral cats, wild animals, skunks, critters, opossums. We've had problems acutely with both of those. I listed that. What I'd like to mention today is for, I'd say, 2 decades of neglect, and that long backyard has been totally neglected. The plants, the various trees and the briar bushes and miscellaneous other stuff impinges on the Bazansky property. I think given the place of the shed, where the wild animals can seek shelter, and just the general ramble of the briars and the overgrown trees that are right on our property, pushing into our property, that we are bearing the brunt of this multi-decade neglect. I would invite anybody who wants to see, come to our property and I'll show you the mess, the chaos that we are living with. And I think we would like relief. There's no reason for us to look like a jungle. And I would say anyone that comes and looks at the chaos we have, ask yourself one question. Would you like this to be in your next to your property? Would you like this to be right up against you? Ask yourself that, and I would hope we make a decision to move forward in improving this property, developing it. And by the way, we have a flat roof. Our property, our house has a flat roof. And the traffic problems you're talking about, we already have on Viewfield. Viewfield goes back, what, half a mile? Everybody on Viewfield has 2 cars, and several have 3. So please, give thought to this in your decision.
Thank you. Thank you. All righty. The next name on the list is Jeff Forster.
Well, my name is Jeffrey Forster. I live at Arley Drive, 18080 Arley Drive. I've been living here for almost 30 years. And when I came to this, to the city of Monte Sereno from an apartment in Los Gatos, one of my goals was to have a house that was livable, that was that suited my purposes for what I wanted it to be. But my biggest concern was that my house and the backyard, side yards have privacy. And this proposal by Ajit will violate that privacy for both myself and the La Bouvet residents. I think it's Lot 2 and Lot 3 in the maps that you've been given or the drawings you've been given. But these 2 houses, Lot 2 and Lot 3, totally violate the privacy of both my house, our house, my wife's house, and I, and the La Bouvet residents, because they just look straight down at our backyards, our patios, our bedrooms, and with no thought about how that design is going to be impacting or does impact the houses that will live along the border with this lot, and its effect on us in terms of privacy. Thank you.
Thank you. Moving on, the next person on the list is Richard Justice.
Yeah, I'm one of the newer members. My wife and I, Debbie, we're on the other side of the street, so kind of a neutral view. And, I just want to add, we have a wonderful neighborhood there. Everybody's very happy, and you're starting to hear some of the concerns that people have with this change. And it is true. I mean, it's going to result in lack of privacy, some issues as it relates to primarily privacy. I mean, I know you have to build homes. I certainly understand your situation. You'd like your property improved. But to just build 3 large homes that are looking down on others, it just doesn't seem like the right thing to do. It seems like there's a better solution to the problem. So I'm just, again, we've only been here for a couple of years. We're across the street, and I have a lot of empathy for my neighbors, and I just don't think it's the right thing to do. Thank you.
Mark Stryker. Say that right?
Yes, you got it right. Great. Hi, we live 18020 Arley Drive. Our property doesn't abut. And we're very much in favor of developing the site as well and improving the site for sure. We just want to see it developed in a manner which minimizes the long-term concerns. And also, I'm here speaking on behalf of my mother-in-law, Rosemary Pierce. She owns the property just this side of the one we're talking about tonight. She's a longtime resident. She's been on work for the city and been city manager in the past. She has the largest of the 6 lots that abut. She has the longest perimeter, 30% or more of the perimeter that we're talking about here. And she had 3 concerns she wanted me to bring up to you here. I mean, they might not all be in your domain, but essentially drainage. She's hoping that you will all ensure that she has no new drainage problems as a result of the construction that happens there. Noise was her other one, was her second one. And the big one, though, was the elevation, right? So she's very concerned about any new building that will be dominant and tower up above her property, not just her house, because her house is at the front end of the property, and that's probably not an issue, but also at the back end of her property as well, which would be similar to the other residents that you've heard from tonight. So if the grading allowed is severe, that'll raise the elevation at the back of the property, and that's exactly what she's worried about. And I'm, like I said earlier, my wife and I were pro-development of the property. I'm personally ambivalent if it's 1 lot or 3 lots. I think that's separate. But what I care about is keeping the land contours and then having buildings or building, whatever it is, that works with the contours but also suit the neighborhood, right? I'm not suggesting something Frank Lloyd Wright fancy kind of homes, but we heard earlier, a suggestion for I think you called it split level or step down or something like that, which I think would follow the contours. What I just don't get is when you have a piece of land that has a north-south slope and even an east-west slope, how you're just going to totally flatten it and change the elevation everywhere. There was talk about this being a jigsaw puzzle. I get that it's a tough puzzle, but I would say I just don't understand how somebody would come along and ignore the constraints, the edge conditions for 6 neighbors, right? Because every one of those is going to create a problem of some sort, whether it's a privacy problem or my trees are dying from drainage not working the same way or whatever it is. And I'm concerned about that. So I just don't think we should plop in an even flat grade construct. And you guys get to make that decision, to make that recommendation, and you're setting a precedent, and I hope you'll weigh in for that. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you. Next person is Matt, either Edis? Edis, very good.
Thank you. So my name is Matt Edis. I live directly across from the property in question on a cul-de-sac, 16202 Sereno Vista Court. We look directly at this property, which quite honestly is currently disgusting. It's overgrown. It's, as someone said, 20 years. I haven't been here that long, but it's certainly been overgrown and ugly as long as I've lived here. I would encourage everybody to go walk the property. It is covered in graffiti, obscene graffiti. There are needles. There are beer bottles and liquor bottles, abandoned cars. And there are tents because there are squatters living there, and the police have been called. So the longer we delay any development on this property, the more I and my 2 small children have to live directly across the street from this. And this is not why I bought a house in Monte Sereno. It's not safe. It's ugly. It's crumbling concrete. It's dying trees. Please, it's just down. Just walk up there but don't do it in the dark, because you'll catch something. So, I live on a cul-de-sac on the opposite side of the street, on a property that used to be 20 acres or so many years ago, and it was split and formed a cul-de-sac, and now we have 4 neighbors, including the Chakins over here, and it seems to have worked out okay. So, I'm in favor of this development, both from the safety and the look of our town, but also. You have to think about the value of everyone's property. Anyone who lives on a property that is large enough that it is theoretically possible to subdivide in Monte Sereno or in any town, the value of your house, whether you do that subdivision or not, in some sense depends on that subdividability. And if you make a precedent that you cannot subdivide your house, and by the way, my lot is not subdividable, but if you make a precedent that a subdividably large property is not subdividable because the neighbors don't like it, you are stealing money from everyone, including, in this case, a family that lived there 100 years since before this was a city. And to be honest, they have a 1 acre property, and there were no small houses near it. But now, in the 90s and 80s and 90s, a bunch of tiny subdivisions happened right behind their house, and people built houses right up to the fence, impinging on their privacy. But they didn't get stopped. Those houses got built near their fences on tiny lots, 8,500 square foot lots. And now people occupying those houses are saying, oh, sorry, people have been here 100 years. You can't subdivide your lot in the same way that we did because you're going to mess up our view. And I find that hypocritical. And as someone who lives in this town and wants this town to be beautiful and frankly spent a lot of money on a house, more than I should have, I want it to be a beautiful town. And it is not with this eyesore, this nuisance across the street from me. Thank you.
Thank you. Next on the list is Laura Labouve.
Okay, I'm just going to read what I wrote. I live on 18050 Arley, right behind this property. First of all, I do want this property to be developed, just not as a 3-house subdivision when it hinders on the value and privacy of my home. So we have lived in Monte Sereno for 21 years. One of the major reasons that we fell in love with our home on Arley Drive was because of the backyard rural view of trees and mountains and complete privacy. We thought we did not have to worry about additional development behind our house because the original home was over 100 years old and therefore could not be changed due to historical preservation laws. Unfortunately, the home was destroyed by fire and thus preservation laws no longer apply. Mr. Singh came to our home 2 years ago to tell us that he was planning on subdividing the lot and building 3 homes, with the home on lot 3 to be positioned directly along our fence line. This was the only way he could pack in 3 homes and have enough frontage along a cul-de-sac. We told him that this design would be extremely obtrusive, but we would support a 1 or 2 house proposal. Instead of trying to work with us, he went ahead with his plan and never spoke to us again. Mr. Singh's tract-style home proposal is even worse than we'd ever imagined. He is not working with the natural contour of the hillside. Instead, he is lowering the land on Highway 9 and raising it in front of us. The foundation of house number 3 will start 13 feet above our backyard. Mr. Singh originally designed the house too high above the natural corridor allowance. So he chopped the roof off and made the house a flat roof, like a Costco, instead of implementing Jeannie's suggestion of stepping down the house. The main window of this house, the master bedroom, kitchen, family room, have a perfect, unobstructed view of our entire house and yard. Mr. Singh is also proposing to put a balcony along the same side of the house that extends out another 10 feet, so it'll only be 20 feet from our fence and above the height of our fence. Lot 2 also has the windows and a porch that obstruct our view and violates our privacy. Since the rest of the yards will be at a steep, unusable area, the balconies will be the main outdoor venue. Believe me, it gets even worse. Mr. Singh says he has to remove 17 trees on the lot, which he only recorded 15, but we counted, it's actually 17. But many more will actually be impacted. Many of the trees that are currently along the fence will be destroyed when drainage is installed. Also, trees will be compromised on lot 3 when dirt is thrown on top of them to raise the grade, and roots will be destroyed in the front part of lot 1 when dirt is removed to lower the elevation. Furthermore, will these sub pumps along the fence work to carry all the excess water up to Highway 9? When pumps fail, who's responsible then for the damage to our yard and our house? There are too many problems to speak about in 3 minutes about Mr. Singh's 3-track like home division proposed so I only mentioned a few of them. Please deny permits for each of these houses. A developer should not be allowed to have this much negative impact on existing neighbors solely for their own personal greed. Thank you.
Thank you. Next person is Dana Marikian? Donna Marikian. Thank you.
Thank you very much. I have lived at 18030 Arley Drive for the last 6 years, and it is a beautiful home with a large lot. My home does not abut to the fence. I have a very large backyard. However, the existing request for architecture does infringe or encroach 11 feet onto the corner of my yard. So your last discussion about fence heights and heights concerns me. It is already an issue, has been since we've lived here, because of course the property has been run down for years, sadly. There is no drainage. I'm concerned about any drainage that will be built. We did lose a tree 4 years ago. I have pictures of the tree because it was root rot from all the water that comes down. I also do have pictures that will show you the runoff from that property on my property, which I have a wall with elevated grass, etc., behind. That literally becomes what I call Niagara Falls, and has this year especially. I ask that you reconsider. That lot will look into 11 feet and all into my backyard, where I will lose privacy. And I ask that you also consider everyone else's privacy. It is a concern. It isn't something that we've had since we've moved here, nor do we want, as I'm sure you wouldn't either. Tract homes are consistent with, my example would be those homes built off of Los Gatos. Literally, there's 6 feet between each home. And so where in this value do we receive our privacy? We should, at these prices, have some say in privacy and concerns. Thank you.
Thank you. The next speaker is Tony Agnelli. Did I say that one right?
I may end up reading this halfway through. My name is Tony Agnelli. We live on the corner of Viewfield and Highway 9, and our house is right across the property line to the house, the original house that was there. And we're connected on the west side from Highway 9 all the way back to our back property line. Given the years we've been here, we've experienced a huge decline in the property and a risk of fire. And we certainly are open to development, but we would like it to appeal to the city and the neighborhood and the community as a whole. It appears, however, there are a number of negative impacts for us that we're dealing with in this proposed development. Lot 1 is the one that is going to get the loudest noise with all the studies done, which doesn't surprise me. And that's right next door to us. And the developer, in an attempt to reduce the Highway 9 noise, has proposed a masonry sound wall, which we call a concrete sound wall, on or near the property line between us, from the front of our house all the way back to our back property line. The natural environment that's currently there with a wooden fence helps absorb any sound that comes now, we feel, and kind of disperses it elsewhere. And while reducing the Highway 9 road noise on Lot 1 property, the noise level on our property would be increased by the bounce back effect from the masonry wall that is proposed. and this is unacceptable to us completely. The next point that we have is the elevations, and it appears that for Lot 1, it takes the front elevation from approximately the front elevation, which is on Highway 9, from approximately 10 feet plus more maybe of the higher level where the current house was located to the actual Highway 9 level. They're going to be taking it all the way down to the Highway 9 level. This opens up the entire front of the proposed development on Highway 9, and as such, will be getting another increase in noise from Highway 9 and a lack of privacy, both of which are currently screened with higher elevations and mature trees. The front retaining wall that you see across there, their portion is completely falling apart now. That is connected with our retaining wall in the front on Highway 9. And as a result, they are going to take this elevation from the top right down to the base of Highway 9 there, and they're going to cut that off. And at this point, we have no idea what's going to be done there, but the integrity and the strength and the support of our part of the wall will be definitely impacted because it's been connected to this wall for probably 100 years. And so there again, we're very concerned about that. The elevations have a considerable drop. So that is kind of where we stand at this point. We want it developed. We do not want to be impacted by these kinds of developments. Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, and our final speaker is Jenny Weissman.
Got my husband next to me for moral support. Hi. I flew in. I took an early flight home to be here to speak at this meeting. My name is Jenny Wiseman, and my husband, Philip. And I live on Rose Court right here, and lived there for, I think I've owned the home for over 20 years. And about 5 years ago, I had the pleasure of coming before this committee, the Site and Architecture Committee, because I met this guy, and he had some capital we tore down my little hobbit house, and we built a nice home on Rose Court. We went through a lot of somersaults to meet all of the needs for the Monte Sereno Site and Architecture Committee. And it wasn't easy. It wasn't the home I originally wanted. I worked very closely with all of my neighbors, got their input, got their concerns, had to change the lines to come into compliance, had to change windows so we didn't impact people's privacy, had to show colors and landscape. And in the end, we didn't mind doing it. We have a beautiful home and have a great relationship with all of our neighbors. My concern is that I'm starting to see lack of consistency of the enforcement that you all gave to me. I'm starting to see lack of that, and I'm just afraid we're going to see a slow creep. So, for example, on Rose Court a couple of years ago, there was a proposal for a mobile, what do you call that kind of home where they drop it in?
Modular.
A modular, thank you, the prefab modular home. There were at least a half a dozen of us that spoke at a committee meeting and had serious concerns because you drive down the street and it's like what is that thing in the middle of our street? We love our neighbors that live there now, but it in no way matches anything that's there. It looks very oddly out of place. And none of the comments that we raised were ever in the minutes. Very concerning. And then at some point, one of the biggest concerns was, can we at least paint it? And the committee decided that it would be painted sort of an aubergine, kind of a redwoody color, and was never done. But there was never anything in the minutes. And so now we've got a precedent. You've got a flat roof modular home. And everybody can say, well, there's already one. And there shouldn't have been one. There was a lot of opposition to that I'm not sure how that ever made it through. And so now we've got some more homes that are out of the character, and I'm afraid we're going to see slow creep because you got one there, you get three there, and all of a sudden now on this nice piece of property, which is the largest piece of property left in Monte Sereno, where there will be high density development and the developers will get their bonus, am I going to see a bunch of flat roofed homes behind my home? And so I'm looking for consistency of the enforcement of what we had to do.
And adherence to the character of the neighborhood that we had to adhere to. We're not adverse, just so everyone knows, we are not adverse to having that property developed.
No.
I mean, I agree with these comments made about, it looks horrible.
I'm going to start another 3 minutes for this other person.
Well, I won't take 3, but
Just to let you know.
sorry. I won't take 3. I'll just
Everybody equal.
just make a couple comments.
Just go ahead and say your name and your address.
Oh, sorry. My name's Philip Wiseman, Jenny's husband, 18020 Rose Court. We are not adverse to it being developed at all, of course, right? It's just the way it's being developed. Flat roofs, overlooking neighbors, and close to neighborhood backyards, and with the elevation differences. I mean, you can look right down in people's backyard or in their bedrooms, for crying out loud. And just because you can subdivide a lot doesn't mean you should. Doesn't mean it needs to be. Doesn't mean it has to be maxed out, such that you can max out the revenue. I mean, everybody knows it's all about money, right? But it also has to do with the character of the neighborhood. And sticking with your guns, being the Site and Architecture Committee, you guys have a mandate to make an impact on keeping the character of this neighborhood. You don't have to put flat roofs up. You don't have to subdivide into 3 houses. Just because you can doesn't mean you should. That's all I had to say.
Thank you very much. Thank you. Okay. I take it there's no one else that would like to speak at this point. Gone through all the cards here. I think at this point the applicant has an opportunity to come back up and speak for another 5 minutes? Where is it?
Yeah,
I think 5
typically.
minutes. So you're welcome to do that.
So I made some notes. The one is about the landscaping. If I'm going to develop these into 3 lots, I'm going through putting like a fire truck turnarounds. If you review the landscaping plans, I have privacy walls everywhere. And just yesterday I ordered like 50 bamboos. It's like a 8-foot bamboo tree is like $85. It's a $5,000 problem to create a privacy for any lot. Okay. The second point is obviously I don't have any friends here. Like I haven't been to your barbecues or anything. I'm purely speaking on the basis of the merits of this project. This house is actually a blight right now. I'm purely seeking your support based upon the merits of this project. I've worked very, very hard on pleasing everyone. Like putting 2 houses would have been completely unfair to the neighbors on Viewfield. They would be like 6 feet, and to the striker's house also. The third thing is about drainage. My civil engineer is here, but I can quickly articulate like anything which we do is going to be like a huge improvement about the drainage. Most of the water is going to fall on the roofs, then directed through the downspouts onto the cul-de-sac. The whole street is paved. It's actually permeable pavers, so we are going to absorb that water there. Rather than doing 10-year systems, we are doing 100-year systems, and the city engineer wanted us to protect us in the case of 2 successive 100-year events. So we're doing the retention systems in the front yards also. I don't know whether I responded to all of the comments, but That's pretty much I gathered. And then I went to each and every one of my neighbors a couple of years ago. I've been going to their houses. But some of them said, like, no matter what you do, we're just going to sue you anyway. So no matter what you do, we're going to sue you anyway. So what's the point of discussion after that? So I'm being completely candid here and answer your questions. Like, I haven't even approached any of you guys. I haven't emailed none of you, but I'm happy to answer the merits of the architecture and why these houses are how they're proposed today. This is our best effort, and we're willing to improve it. If we can stick to the discussion of architecture, or I'm happy to answer. Like, I know that the front view should be important, so should be the internal floor plan. These are not tract homes. I've done over 31 homes in Santa Clara County, and CEOs of public companies email me, please sell the next one to me, private. Yeah, I can forward you those emails. I can show you some pictures. Everything is beautiful. And besides, all of this creates like employment, really. You guys have the power. You can just stop it. You'll be depriving some very poor people the opportunity to make money and bring some bread to the family. But I'll happy to answer any of the questions about like why this is our best effort.
Okay. Does anybody have any questions for the applicant? I just had one question. On lots 2 and 3, the bioswale retention ponds down at the bottom or low end of the lots, do those rely on mechanical lifting of water up to the street via pumps?
I'll invite my civil engineer. His specialization in MS is in hydrology.
My name is Oscar Osuna. I'm a licensed civil engineer and a licensed surveyor. To answer your question, we've done what you're seeing right now is the last compromise we did to try to. What you have right now really is we have a lot that's all draining towards northeast, and right now there's no drainage at all in that property. So it's actually not all of it. It's like 2/3 of it. 1/3 of it is going to the Saratoga. What we have done and what we have proposed on the grading is to make it better. Now only 1/4 of it is going to that backside, instead of all of it, or instead of 2/3 of it. So the bioswale, to answer your question, is receiving water only from the backyard. All the roof and hardscape is going to the cul-de-sac, which is permeable pavers.
I see.
And that's going to have a system that if it overflows, we're going to have a pipe that's going to go, probably be bored and jacked or something to go to across Highway 9. So, like, again, we're dealing with a piece of property that has no drainage at all, and we're improving it, as best we can. We can't go against water. Can't go against gravity. So, and we can't build, a 40-foot retaining wall in the back to have everything go to the forward. So we created a balance where we have no retaining walls in the back, and we're taking the street and all the roofs to Saratoga. So, and to answer your question about the mechanical units in the back, we put that as a security because, the bioretentions can only take so much. We have clay soils and so on. So if that gets saturated, a mechanical system will pump the water up to the storm retention that we have.
Kind of a backup system.
Exactly.
Okay.
It's more of a backup system.
Great. Okay. Thanks for clarifying that.
You're welcome.
I think at this point, it's up to us to kind of discuss it. I'm not super clear on what our action is at this point. I mean, we've heard a lot of people speak in opposition of this project, and we've heard the applicant speak. And we're supposed to not turn a blind eye, but kind of take the subdivision piece kind of out of the picture for our review and treat these almost, I guess, as if they were three individual projects happening. Are we treating them as standalone projects, or is it kind of like the overarching architectural and site development issues as a single entity?
Well, I think maybe the first thing you might want to do is kind of close the public comment
Sure,
portion of the discussion, just
formalities,
to
yes.
make sure that we're kind of procedurally being consistent with the way you discuss other things.
Okay, yeah,
And
so
then I can,
we're closing that. So the public speaking portion is now closed, and so we're going to bring it back to the commissioners to decide a course of action.
yeah, so I think that's a good way to help you kind of manage it, is you could look at it as three individual site permits and, each house on it, or you could look at it collectively and, comment or recommend on each individual lot. You could take the direction of what you might typically do is, recommend approval of this design, or, approval with conditions. You could say it's just too far gone, that there's not much that we could see can be done absent, and recommend denial. Or again, you could also, if you were not supportive of the design as proposed, like any recommendation or direction, how can you help the decision makers look at the design of a home on a certain piece of property? What, in your expertise, given the context of the neighborhood, or its location, fronting on Highway 9 or whatnot, what might you envision or see as a design that could, work on those sites or each individual lot?
Okay, so maybe we'll bring it back and maybe start with kind of a broad brush kind of comment, question, discussion, and then dig into the individual properties one by one. There's a lot going on here.
There's a lot going on.
Trying to make some order of it. And I'll start it off on just to kind of a very broad overview. I mean, as I look at this plan in 2D, just on a flat piece of paper, I mean, I can appreciate the level of effort that has gone into fitting three homes on this property with a street and a cul-de-sac, and maintaining 30 feet off of everybody's rear yard or side yard. That's definitely a jigsaw puzzle effort here. But when I go out and look at the site and look at the natural contours of the lands, I really feel that we're just scooping all the dirt on the front and moving it all to the back and making one big level lot to fit these three homes on without any sort of elevation difference. To me, this looks like the most economical way to fit three homes on this property. I don't feel that there's been a lot of effort in trying to maintain the natural scope and landscape of this. See the story poles at the front, they're about 7 feet tall. So obviously, we're cutting down, and I see the story poles at the back, and they're 22 feet tall, and that's for the flat roof house. So it's an inordinate amount of earth being moved to make a flat lot so that we can fit these 3 homes on there. That's my general thought, without digging into the specifics of the architecture.
So I absolutely agree with it. And going back to what Phil and Jenny Weisman had to say about site and architecture, I mean, the biggest reason that we have this commission is for neighbors to come together in a friendly atmosphere and kind of make compromises on how to build in the city, and it works beautifully most of the time. And 2 is to maintain our rural nature. That's why we're not Los Gatos, is we want to keep the contours of the land. And I echo what Steve just said on the grading is not in compliance, in my opinion, with what site and architecture's job is to approve. So that's my take.
So just a clarifying, it's just a clarity question. This property, as we look here, it slopes up this way.
The opposite.
Slopes the
Well,
other.
it goes up,
Yeah.
kind of flat where the existing house pad is, and then it drops down.
Okay, so it drops down at the other end.
Significant.
Pretty
So
steep.
yeah, it goes.
So, are you suggesting that a lot of this earth is going to be moved toward the street?
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah, look at the
cuts
elevation.
on the elevations, Ron. Well, these
T3.
you can see on these. You can see how much they're cutting to the land here. Shows,
Okay.
and then on the T3, here's how much dirt they're removing and cutting. It's a significant amount of dirt they're grading, and they have to have still a permit with the city council to move.
Grading use permit.
A grading use permit. And it's a significant amount of dirt they're moving.
So with that grading impact on this property, this is going to be a little flatter situation than it is today.
Correct.
Is that going to have an impact on the visibility of looking down on the neighborhood still? Even though this is a flatter situation, it's still going to have the
Because it'll
problem.
be raised in the back.
Yeah.
It'll still be higher in the back.
Yeah.
And there's
With 3 lots on the parcel, you're going to have such mass that the proposed improvements cannot minimize interference of views from neighboring lots. It's just impossible.
And even if there were 2 houses on this property, we'd still run into some of these same issues.
Maybe
could be
not if you move them
mitigated.
forward toward the street.
well, and they could also be stepped down the hill.
True.
To work with the natural contours, they could do something like a walkout basement and reduce the main footprint of the house and have more land preserved.
Yeah, I echo your concerns, both Steve and Heather. And this property is going to be subdivided at some point. It's going to be developed, certainly, at some point. Who owns the property, whether there's been a petition that none of us have seen, whether there's a nuisance on the site, neighbors' behavior about this, and applicants' behavior about this. We're not evaluating any of those issues. I think we're held to the strict standards that are established under the design guidelines. And when I review those design guidelines in comparison with what's been proposed, I just think the neighborhood compatibility and the site compatibility issues are such that it warrants denial of this by the city council. I also have concerns vis-a-vis the style of architecture, and I think what is a economic, to use your word, approach to these homes, which is not compatible with the rest of the neighborhood as well. Those are my overall thoughts, but I'm ambivalent about this, like many, because this site will be developed, and this may not be the best opportunity for it, but it will be developed, and everybody needs to get their heads around that at some point.
Yeah, and I can't take the approach that any development is better than what's there, because I want to make sure it gets done right. I mean, this is on our watch, and just to say, well, what's there now is really bad, and it is, to just go in and bulldoze a thing and make it level and put these. I don't think the developer is really doing. Respect the character of this community.
Correct. And I don't think it's fair for us as a commission to give the applicant recommendations regarding what architectural changes
Agree.
ought to occur with respect to style and dimension of these homes to appease us. We could be here, I'd be here for
I
days
agree.
on that subject alone.
Yeah, that was kind of going to be my next point, is if we're really, in objection to the thing from such a broad view, to dig into the architectural details is pointless.
Right.
I mean, these could be each an architectural masterpiece, but in the current condition, I just don't think it would be appropriate.
It seems very difficult for this commission to pass judgment on 3 individual properties as if they were one property, because this is very different than we generally have to deal with.
Maybe modifying what you said slightly, if we are evaluating all 3 of these as one development, then it doesn't meet the criteria that has been established by the city and by which we're supposed to evaluate these various applications. But if we're looking at these, as Steve suggested a moment ago, in isolation, one after another, there probably could be some discussion about each particular home that would be of some benefit.
Right.
But I don't think that's our job.
I don't either.
It's not like we're going to be able to say, well, let's do this one first, and then we'll do this one.
Yeah.
And then we'll see where we are when we get to
And then it'll be 3:30 in the morning, and we'll all look at each other. I guess I asked the commission, is there anybody that supports what has been supplied as the application?
I haven't spoken yet. I love going last because everybody's already said, I mean, I looked at the grading and it was hard to get past the grading and the height of the house in the rear and the height and the Los Gatos Boulevard or Highway 9 level. I couldn't get past that. I think it's wrong to change the whole structure of the little hillside there. And I'm not a builder, but I'm sure something could be put there that would not disrupt the hillside and would not be looming over neighbors' backyards.
Yeah, I mean, it's doable, it's developable.
It just will need more creativity.
Yeah, it's definitely, the site has its challenges. It's up to the task to meet the challenge.
All right, against that background, then I will make the motion that the commission recommend the city deny the application as submitted based on incompatibility with criteria set forth in the design guidelines, including neighborhood compatibility, site compatibility, landscaping, and the road. I just don't think the road integrates into the natural landscape at all, for the reason you were just talking about, Jen.
Excessive grading.
Yeah, and that's an element of the site compatibility, yeah.
Second it.
I second the motion.
Whoever wants to second it.
So who seconded it?
Okay, so we'll put it to a vote then at this point. All those in favor of the motion? Aye.
The motion
Aye.
to deny.
Motion to not
Yeah.
deny, yes.
Recommend
Say
denial.
aye.
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 Aye. All those not in favor? Okay, the commission has voted 5-0 to deny this in its current state.
I have a question. So given that you're voting to make this not happen, how do we get something done about this property so it's not a safety hazard to those of us who live here?
That's not within our purview, so I
I'll
can't answer
talk to you
that.
after the meeting.
Okay, this meeting is adjourned.
Didn't go half as long as I thought it would.
Well done, Steve.